bit of that. And then what I'm going to do is in his honor, I'm going to make a list of songs um, that uh, that meant a lot to Andy and me. And what I want you guys to do as you're listening to this and listening to me explain the songs and listening to my relationship with Andy is I want you to think about those in your life and what songs mean something and what songs will bring back honestly wonderful memories and put them in the chat, please. You know, I want you guys to share with me what I'm sharing with you. And in this case, it's going to be a celebration of someone's life who who meant something to me. Okay, so and I'll say that a couple times. My buddy Joel is again going to be putting the link here. Joel, if you're ready, put the link up in the comments. Um, don't ask me to do the YouTube thing. I got no idea how to do it. I'm not going to do it today, please. Just for today, I'll start on that kind of stuff. Um, you know, I'll start that stuff next week. If you guys are tuning in, please hit the reaction button so that I know people have been here. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this list of songs that my buddy Andy and I had a connection with. Now, let me give you an idea of what Andy meant to me and why this is affecting me so much. So as I put in my post in the video that I posted today, when in 2005 when I got divorced from my second wife, I was paying child support. Hey, what's going on? I was paying child support, and I was you know, I wasn't making a lot of money at the radio station, which is funny to people who knew me from radio because they thought that I was, you know, hey, I'm rolling in the dope. No, there's no money in radio. Um, and so I didn't have a place to live. Those of you who remember me from radio, we had a place called the Hall of Dudes. I tried that for a little bit. I really couldn't even afford to live there. They weren't charging. That was a whole big to do. But Andy and his wonderful, beautiful wife, Margie, they invited me to go live with them out in Windsor in a little apartment above their garage. And they're the reason, like I said in the video, they're the reason that I never ended up living in the street. And and Andy, who I met through the Navy. So when I was stationed on the Ronald Reagan, Andy was one of the first people who got stationed um, to the division I worked on. Right, so Andy worked for me, and Andy was this guy from Buffalo, New York, very street smart, very street savvy, um, a recovering heroin addict at the time. Um, and him and I were just bust balls, right? And we developed this really good friendship. Um, I was there at when both of his children were born. I was there when, um, you know, through the trials and tribulations, um, and they always provided me that one place to stay, which again is the only reason I never ever ended up in the streets. So Andy and I, after I got out of the Navy, I was on the radio, and those of you who might remember Andy, because he would call into my show, the Debacle, which is where my show is where this gets the name the Debacle from. For those of you who might have wondered where Debacle comes from, and everything I've ever done that's been a public thing, a me going out and connecting with an audience thing, has always been named Debacle from that. So Andy used to call. He was one of my recurring characters in my show, and he was the landlord, and that's what he got known. He would call in as the landlord, and when we do these little bits where he would bust my chops about paying rent, and would bust my chops about um uh, making sure that I did stuff at the house. Um, and we'd have a laugh, you know. And it was nice to be able to incorporate him into my show. It really, really was. But anyway, so we'd get home, and Andy and I would go in the garage, and we would start to drink. And I was a Jack Daniels guy, still am. Andy was a Crown Royal guy, and we would put in CDs, and we would sing, and we would talk, and we would laugh, and we would joke. Um, and sometimes it was this incredibly raucous, joyful experience, and sometimes it was deep conversation. Sometimes we'd be yelling at each other, you know. But it was a friendship. It was a deep friendship. Um, Eventually, I got GI Bill. Well, I got a girlfriend. I ended up moving in with her, but I still had everything over at Andy and Margie's place. Got the GI Bill. Got the went to college. Was actually able to get a real job, get my own place. Um, and Andy and I kept the relationship until he unfortunately ended up relapsing, ended up getting divorced from Margie, and him and I kind of split ways for a bit. Um, Recently, I'd say maybe about 3, 4 years ago, um, Andy's son, Alex, who's an incredible, incredible young man, graduated high school, and um, I got to go see Andy for the first time in years, and him and I made up, and and then I got to see him when his son, who now plays in a band, plays bass in a band, two bands actually now. Great kid. Um, I got to see him when he was when Alex was playing bass for School of Rock. They did a show doing Black Sabbath and Black Sabbath songs, and I got to see Andy there. And then I got to see Andy when his youngest daughter, his youngest daughter, Marielle, who I call Mari, um, when she graduated. Hey, what's up, Rich? Yes, and there will be some Led Zeppelin and some Pick of the Floyd on there too. um, so what I want to do is I want to talk about these songs that Andy and I that we formed a bond over. And what I want you guys to do, first of all, make sure that you hit a reaction. Let me know that you guys are here. All right. I've already seen 3 people and I've gotten one reaction. And I know the one reaction comes from my wife who's here because she knows. So reach over there, hit a thumbs up, hit a love, hit a shock, a laugh. I don't give a shit what you do. Just hit a reaction so I know that you're here. Um, and Rich, real quick before I go on to this, while I know I got you here, today's the day we shocked the world, and you made the national papers by being on Bunty's shoulders with your arms in victory as Siena beat Stanford in the tournament, and it was a huge deal. So, little shout, Rich, for your moment in the sun. All right. So, as Andy and I were in the garage, we'd either be in the garage or we'd be out where he would start it. Andy was a pyromaniac and loved to start fires, and he had a little fire pit, um, and we would just throw shit in there and just burn stuff. Um, uh, whether they were letters from my ex, whether they were uh, um, papers, whether they were clothing. A lot of my old when I was on radio, one of the things I was known for was for Hawaiian shirts. So when that started to go away, we burned them all. So Andy and I, we'd get wood, we'd get cardboard, we'd set fires, we'd drink, and then we start talking music. And so this list that I'm going to give you of songs that Andy and I would talk about, and what they meant to him and and to us as friends. And again, as I'm doing this, I want you guys to write down songs and what they mean to you, especially if it's a connection. And I'm not talking about the song, you know, your wedding song, or you know, a song with a girlfriend. No, I'm talking about with a friend. Okay, a song that or songs that were part of the friendship. Um, that if you had to do a soundtrack, if you had to do a soundtrack, um, what songs would be on that soundtrack to describe you and your friend? Okay, and so this would be the soundtrack for me and Andy. And I'm going to start with two songs, uh, which were very meaningful more to Andy than to me. And that's because Andy and I, when we would get into our discussions of our past and what we would think, neither one of us thought we would make it past 35. And we both did. Uh, both made it to our late 50s. You know, knock on wood, I don't go anytime soon. Um, but he would always say, we'd make these lists of songs he wanted to play uh, at his funeral, and I would help him make these CDs and make these lists. And sometimes we would spend hours just coming up with songs and crossing songs off and adding songs on. But these two songs always, always made Andy's list. And the first one, Jim West, with a buddy of mine, uh, FJ, will always blast Ventura Highway driving home from from Admiral games. We belt out every note, wouldn't trade it for the world. See, things like that. Things like that. That's what I'm talking about. When you got that one song that reminds you of a person, you know, and things. And I have songs like that that remind me of the guys you guys know. I would know, you know, Mike and Bob from radio. Um, I got songs like that, Rich, that remind me of you and Mike Montaigne and Steve Pinto and Chris Repetto and my guys from college. And I got songs of people in the Navy. But right now, thank you, Matt. I appreciate you saying that. But right now, we're going to talk about my buddy Andy. So these first two songs, always, regardless of when we sat there and talked, regardless of how drunk we were, these two songs were always on Andy's list to be played at his funeral. Number one um, is Judas Priest off the album Sin After Sin, came out in 1977, and it was a remake of a song that was originally done by Joan Baez. It's a song called Diamond and Rust, and what a wonderful song. It's a song about a relationship, um, and the significance of the relationship, and what it goes through, what that relationship goes through. And again, it was a song that was originally done by Joan Baez. Those of you who don't know, Joan Baez was a folk singer, um, uh, and it was given the heavy metal treatment by Judas Priest, and an incredible, wonderful version. Um, and when he told me that the first time, I was like, you know, he didn't tell me it was Judas Priest. He would just say, "Man, Diamonds and Rust," and I of course would call him a pussy because it's like, dude, you're supposed to be a tough guy, you know, like punk and metal, and it's like, and you talk about this Joan Baez song, and then he told me, "No, you dumbass, it's Judas Priest," and he played it for me, and it was a very moving song. The second one, Deep Purple off the Deep Purple and Rock album, which they released in 1970, and it's a song called Child in Time. And that song, it's a 10-minute song, okay? Not something you would expect from a band like Deep Purple. You know, they sure as hell weren't the Grateful Dead. But that song was about the Cold War, and it was about trying to live a life knowing that nuclear Armageddon is in the back of your head. And it's something I know we can, well, those of us who were alive during the Cold War definitely know that. But for you younger guys, it's something that you're probably living with over the last 10, 12 years, right? This fear that you know, whether it's with Russia or Iran, whoever, that nuclear war is going to happen and everything could end like that. So these two songs meant something to the two of us, more to Andy than for me. And Margie, if you're listening, um, if you do a memorial service, please make sure those two songs get played. um, in Andy's memory. Third one, and again, all right, I'm seeing you guys put in some comments, and I appreciate it so much. But please make sure that you hit the reaction button so that I know that you're there. Okay, because that's the only way I really know who's there and who's not, who's paying attention. And of course leaving the comments. Um, so the third one is a song that was released. The album was released in 1978. 77. No, excuse me. Looking at the wrong one. The album was released in 1975. It was a double album set by Led Zeppelin. It's called Physical Graffiti. And this was the first song that Andy and I really kind of bonded over. It's a song called 10 Years Gone. And the the gist of that story, Robert Plant wrote the words to it, was about a a girlfriend he had who he had deep feelings for, who gave him the ultimatum. It's me or it's Led Zeppelin. Either you're going to get rid of the dream and we're going to live our lives together, or you're going to chase the dream. And he decided to chase the dream. And 10 years gone. 10 years later, he's he's still thinking about her. He's living this great life. He's a rock star, right? He's Robert Plant. He's the lead singer of arguably one of the biggest, well, definitely one of the biggest bands of the time, and arguably one of the biggest um uh greatest bands of all time. And he's still thinking about a choice he made. And Andy and I would talk about that, the choices we made, and did we regret them or not? And neither Andy nor I, we would never say that. And people always say this. Yeah, I don't regret them. I wouldn't change a thing. People full of shit. And that includes you guys if you say that. I wouldn't change a thing. Um, we made choices in life where we picked one thing over another, and we're here today. And if we're living a good life, yay, we made the right choice. But that doesn't mean we don't wonder what the outcome could have been if we chose something else, right? If I never went to Siena College, I wouldn't be here today. I went to Siena College chasing my girlfriend, who I used to say was my wife. One of the stupidest things I ever did, but I was a young kid. Um, but I made the choice to chase her, and she was my girlfriend. Stupid fucking thing. But here I am today with a wonderful wife in a room full of fucking memorabilia with a lifetime worth of experiences that I say I wouldn't trade for anything. Right? I got my own house, and whatever. But if you don't think I don't wonder what would have happened if I just said the hell with her. You know, I do. You know, Matt, real quick says beer for my horses. Buddy and I would say at the top of our lungs in college, windows open while cleaning up the apartment. Those are Matt. Those are the kind of fucking things, right? That's what I'm talking. And you hear it, and it doesn't matter. You just start laughing today, right? And you smile, and it's such a beautiful fucking thing. Scott says, if you don't have songs with your buddies, uh, if if you don't have songs with your buddies, then they probably ain't buddies. That's a fact. They ain't friends. You know, friends are people you create memories with, and music is the soundtrack of those memories. Matt again says also that on air sign should be lit up, bro. The one behind me, dude, I barely make it on time here, let alone thinking about I write lists about stuff I'm gonna talk to. You think I'm gonna remember to put that sign on? But if I do remember it, I'll try it for next week. Okay. The next one from the Grateful Dead, and it's funny because Andy was this punk guy. He was this metal guy, no shit, you know, but he was a hippie at heart. Deep down inside, we would talk. He would tell me about how he went to go see the Grateful Dead several times, and we would play up some Dead songs. Um, this one, uh, kind of a little melancholy, uh, comes from the 1970 album uh, American Beauty, and it's a song um, called "Box of Rains," written by, uh, partially written by Phil Lech, the bassist of the Grateful Dead, who passed away late last year, early this year. And it was a song that was written as he was going to see his father in hospice. His father was dying of cancer, and the song essentially, if you listen to it, um, uh, it's we always took it as him coming to terms with it, and it's rambling. Like the song doesn't rhyme, it doesn't follow, you know, anything. Uh but it's all of these feelings that are coming out in rambling thoughts as you're thinking about, in this case, him thinking about his dad who was passing away. Um, but Andy and I um, were a lot of times it was laughing while we were drinking to a point, and then once we hit that point, then we always hit that point. It became very reflective and very much trying to come to terms with our past, trying to come to terms with the relationships we had with our fathers. Um, I would always tell Andy, uh, and again, like I said, you know, he was an addict. He was recovering. Um, that the difference between Andy and I was that he used the needle and I didn't. And the only reason I never used it was because I had a brother who was a heroin addict, and I saw what he did, and I saw what the toll it took on our family, and that's the only reason. But Andy and I walked very very similar paths, and we had very similar strict fathers who who weren't as emotionally available. How's that? As fathers are today. I was able to process it all growing up and understanding that I could very easily have been that emotionally distant guy like my dad, and it comes out at times, believe me. Um, but that I had the choice to not be like him. Andy, God bless him, didn't understand that that he didn't have to be like his dad. And whenever we got to that point, you know, it was whenever we got to that point in the discussion, it was very like I could see the pain. He wanted to change. He didn't want to be like his dad, very strict, not very emotionally distant. Um, but he thought that that was it. He was destined to that, and thought he couldn't change that. And I wish that he would have, because he could have. And that's something for you guys too, man. You know, we all grow up influenced by our parents, whether we know it or not. And if our parents weren't exactly the greatest parents in the world, it influences us. We don't have to be like that. I forgave my father for the way he treated me because I understood he grew up in a time where he didn't know any better. He didn't know better. I'm smart. I like to think I'm smart, smarter than he was. And so I knew that I didn't have to be that way. Andy was smart, but he never understood he didn't have to be that way. And that always haunted him, and it would come out while we were drinking after the laughter and after the, you know, when you get past all the good times of drinking and you either become, you either get the beer muscles or you get the beer emotions. You know, beer muscles lead to fights. The beer emotions lead to deep realizations of yourself. And so Boxer Reigns is that random stuff that you're, in this case, he's facing his mortality, or Phil Lesh was, as he's going to visit his dad. Um, so, yeah. So there were those songs. Now, Scotty, real quick, says, history and experiences driving cross country from Michigan to Virginia with me. Uh, I went to go see Scotty out in, I guess it's got Joel. This is his real name, by the way. I went to go see Joel out in Detroit after he had to move over there because the Ford plant closed down in Windsor and in Suffolk, and he had the option of going out there or losing his job. He decided to move out there, and I went to go visit him once, and I drove back with him, so we could stop, pick up my kids in Ohio, and I could have my kids with me for a week. And yeah, we did have a memory real quick. I'm gonna interrupt my memories with Andy for a quick memory with Joel, going to see Pearl Jam, and I'm gonna tell a smoking weed story. Yes, I smoked weed. So we went to go see Pearl Jam, and Scotty, I'm seeing Scotty, had some weed, and we smoked it, and we got so wasted. I ended up going up, and I'm sitting by the merch table, looking at the guy, and half the concert I was up there until the song "Alive" came out, and in my in my haze, I look up, and it's like, and I told him, I know this song, and I ran as quick as a person who's high can run, um, to Joel, and I started to Scotty, and I started, and I'm standing with him, and we're both just belting out this song. That's one of those things that's imprinted through the haze. Jim says the universe led me to tune in tonight. I have a contentious relationship with my dad and needed to hear this tonight. Um, Jim, I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that this is making you think about your relationship with your dad. This is, for what it's worth, I don't know it, and obviously I'm not going to try to psychoanalyze anything, but I will tell you this. Um, I can almost guarantee, without knowing your dad, that your dad did the best he could with what he knew. I'm sure as you sit there and you think back on the relationship that you had with your dad, you think of good times and bad times, right? And the good times was your dad overcoming those, the things that kept him from being 100% wonderful, right? Focus on that. Focus on that. And then if you have children, then take the good stuff from that relationship and amplify it in the relationship you have with your child. And understand that it's a possibility. Your dad's old, set in his ways. I know I'm 58. I'll be 59 this year. I'm set in my ways. My children understand that, and I do the best I can with my situation. Hopefully, whatever good that they see in me, they take, and they get rid of the rest. Scott Request says, my buddy used to play Pantera CFH on the jukebox. One day, the barmaid shuts off the juice box, gave us our money back. She said Pantera was barred from the bar. Fast forward 20 years, and in walks Vinnie Paul. Nobody knew who he was. That's classic. We me and a couple buddies went to a bar over here called Spirits in Fredericksburg, and we decided to put people were playing all the latest stuff, and we got tired of it. And we took something from a show called The League, and we put $7 of worth of Hoover stank in there, and everybody else hauled ass. So let's get back to this list for me and my buddy Andy. Next song is a group I can almost guarantee none of you have ever heard of. Um, it's actually a super group. It's a country super group called Old Dogs, and the group is Waylon Jennings, Mel Tillis, Bobby Bear, and Jerry Reed. Jerry Reed, who was the snowman in Smokey and the Bandit, and they put out this self-titled album, 1998, and the song is called "Still Gonna Die." And essentially, what the song was about is it doesn't matter what you do, you're still gonna die. So you could go on a diet, you're still gonna die. You can give up drinking, you're still gonna die. You can exercise, you're still gonna die. Aliens can come down here and get rid of all diseases and everything. You're still gonna die. And it's done in a way. It was written by Shel Silverstein, um, who wrote The Giving Tree, by the way. He wrote a bunch. Joel, you know Old Dogs. You know what? If I'd have known that you were here, I would. Oh, I I I would have figured out if anybody knew who the Old Dogs were. It's him. It was you. But if you get a chance, listen to that song. Go on YouTube, write it down. Old Dogs, Still Gonna Die. Again, it's from the self-titled album, came out in 1998. It is a great song. Whole album was great. And again, it was one of those CDs I got. Um, Andy heard it, we played it, and it became Andy's. I never saw it again. Uh, but we would play it, and we would always play that song. Uh, and yeah, and it's yes, Joe. Yeah, Sal Silverstein wrote a ton of um, Dr. Hook songs. Those of you who don't know Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, um, Cover of the Rolling Stone is their big one. Sylvia's Mother, a bunch of others. Um, but yeah, definitely check out the song Old Dogs. Another um, another band that I turned Andy onto, and it was a band that that we played on 96X. We broke them out. It's a band called She Wants Revenge. And their self-titled album, a song that we used to play all the time, a song called "Tear You Apart." He had heard it a few times. You're welcome, Jim. I hope it hurt. I hope it helps. We had played it. But going back to this, "Tear You Apart," "She Wants Revenge." The album came out 2006. It was a self-titled album, and we played it a lot on 96X. He had heard it. He had asked me about it. I got the CD, brought it in. He fell in love with it. Um, but that song, what's great about that song is is it's the dichotomy of a human being. In this case, it's a high school guy who gets his first crush and a kiss, and he's torn between um, wanting this magical moment of kissing her and holding her, and this realization that this is and then you know, and this you know, um, him wanting to tear her apart, him wanting to just be done. You know, this anger and this frustration and this lust and all of this stuff that a young guy goes through. I mean, I'm sure women do too. I'm not gonna say that women don't go through the female equivalent of those feelings, those confusing feelings. But for a young man who wants to be caring and loving, but still is this range of hormones where he just wants to fuck everything that he can get a hold of and just drive. You know, this aggressiveness. It's very conflicting, and it's a great song, Goth, which was the first time that I really got to know that Andy liked goth music, The Cure, and Depeche Mode, and Bauhaus and things like that. Which again, in our regular conversations, um, Andy and I never talked about. It was always classic rock and metal and punk, and the occasional country, you know. Um, but God, he would play that. I ended up, I think, eventually giving him two CDs because he had worn the first one to the ground. Um, uh, yeah. Um, and again, I hope you guys are getting something out of this. I hope you guys are thinking of your friends and the connections and the memories you had with your friends, and write some down here, please. You know, so some guys have already shared a couple. I want those of you who are here and listening. I want you guys to chime in also. I real quick, just to switch friends, just to show you this. That one of my favorite memories is Mike Powers, for the Mike and Bob show. One of my radio buddies, and we were on our way um to go to celebrate his mother's birthday, and we're listening to Johnny Maestro and the Brooklyn Bridge, a song called "Worst That Could Happen," and and I'm belting out this song, right? Uh, and there's this part of the song where it goes, "Maybe it's the best thing for you, but it's the worst that could happen." You know, it's about this guy who uh, talked to his girl, an ex. The girl finds her love. She's getting married. Girl, I heard you're getting married. Heard you're getting married. This time you're really sure. And this is the end. They say you really mean it. Anyway, so, right. And I'm belting this stuff out. And we come to a red light. And I open up the door and I step out and I'm just shouting out this song. Right. You know, maybe if he loves you more than me, maybe it's the best thing. Stand at the traffic light. I'm shocked. Maybe it's the best thing for you, but it's the worst that could happen to me. And he's like, oh, and he's laughing his ass. It's man, one of those memories. I have plenty with my real brother, my brother Louis, when I lived with him, and so please, if you have any songs that you connect you with a not a girlfriend, not a wife, not a past lover, but with a friend who meant something, man, throw that in the chat and share it with us. 'Cause I'm over here celebrating my friend Andy and the love that we had for each other and the music that 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 was the soundtrack of that relationship. So I got through the first six. Number seven was from the first supergroup band called Cream. Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce, and the immortal uh, Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton is God. That was spray painted on some wall somewhere in England. And in 1967, they put out an album called Disrael Gears. I can never pronounce the Disrael Gears. And they had a song called Tales of Brave Ulysses. And it's just a song that made no sense. It really didn't. I can't even describe to you the cadence of the song if you've never heard it. Um, but there's always a part. There's you say you're going da 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 to the heartland of the sea, and it would say something like that, right? You know, to watch the white tails break, whatever. And Andy and I would just, it's about tripping. If I'll tell you what, if you want the clearest way to try to understand what tripping on acid is without actually taking acid, listen to the song called Tales of Brave Ulysses. And Andy and I would just make up these words, and then we would, that one part where it would say, we'd just say, um, and we would say something stupid, right? Like, she said she'd make a sandwich, and I'm going to the kitchen, and I'm looking for the mustard, and I find there is no bread. And just yell it out like that. Like that would be an example. Yeah, tiny purple fishes. Guys, listen to that song, man. I think you're really gonna fucking enjoy it if you do, and you'll understand the madness of that song. And then imagine two drunk guys who are just babbling, and then all of a sudden will just shout out, you know, something out of nowhere. Um, uh, but yeah, so that's number 7, and that's a Tales of Brave Ulysses from the band Cream. Number number 8. Now number 8 is a song that anybody who loves classic rock, anybody who loves heavy metal, anybody who loves hard rock is a song they're gonna know, and I guarantee you, you have a connection with a friend that this song ties the two of you together. And this one is the 1970 is off the 1970 album by the same name. It's Black Sabbath's Paranoid. Um, and Andy and I rarely started a night of drinking without listening to some classic rock. And Paranoid was always one of the probably first 5 6 songs that would come up that we would just start. By the time Paranoid came up, we were in our groove. We, uh, the voices had had gelled. They were la, 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 la. They had been warmed up, and the music is playing. And you get that right, that iconic beginning, and then bam, we're ready, and here comes ready. Finish with my woman, cause she couldn't help me with my. The voices are in harmony. The throat has been lubricated with Jack Daniels for me, Crown Royal for him, and now we're ready. We're ready for the show to begin. This isn't sound check anymore. This is the show, and Andy and I we're ready. By the time Paranoid came on, we had the good buzz going again. The pipes were lubricated, ready, and it went from 6 and 7. Now we're at 10 and getting ready for the Spinal Tap's 11. Uh, and again, a lot of this stuff, man. And I know you guys have these memories, and please share them with us. Put them in the chat. Let us, let everybody else know about the memories you have. These songs that connected you and a friend, a dear friend, your best friend, because they mean so much. You know, um, uh, Joel says my brother brought that back from his tour in Vietnam. First time you ever heard it. Uh, Joel, how was it? This is when I wish we were interactive and I could talk to you guys. How was it the first time that that you heard it? You know, Scott, you saw Spinal Tap live, Row 3? Are you shitting me? They're supposed to be putting out um uh the album. Album. They're supposed to put out a new movie in December. And I can't wait for it. And I'm hoping they go on tour. I am so hoping that they go on tour. That would be awesome. I'd love to see them. Honey, if you're listening, um, if you're listening, the Spinal Tap goes on tour. Bucket list item. And Joel, see, that makes sense. Amazing. Nothing like you had ever heard. I talk about this often, and I talk about this when I talk about music that a younger generation takes for granted. Um, and I'm gonna move things up a little bit, uh, and I'll talk about things like uh, let's talk Iron Maiden, or let's talk the Sex Pistols, or let's talk anything along those lines, right? Twisted Sister, uh, NWA, Garth Brooks. Doesn't have to be rock, but the first time that you hear something and how it affects you. You're like, holy shit, like Joseph, amazing. Nothing like it ever. When the first time I heard Smells Like Teen Spirit, I was a DJ at a college in Florida. I had tried to I tried to start a master's at a radio station, uh, WNKR, an overnight radio, and I was the first DJ in South Florida to play "Smells Like Teen Spirit." And the first time I heard that, the first time, 'cause we were a college radio station, so we got it before all the big to do stations got it before it became this big hit. It started at college, and I was in the studio. The music director comes in. It's a guy by the Kid Rock. That was his name. Oh shit, really? And he comes in. He goes, um, uh, he comes in, and he's got Torres, Alfredo, or whatever the hell he called me back then. You got to play this right now, and like live on the air. Like what is it? Band out of Seattle that called Nirvana. Um, uh, this is going to be the song, and we played "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and I put it on, and him and I started. We started slam dancing. We were in the studio. I forgot to turn the mic off. We were hearing chairs bumping. I was like, "Oh my god!" Yeah, that was. I mean, yeah, it's like that. Paranoid was like that. Songs that we and I was alive in 1970, but I was 4 years old. So let's be real. It's not like I heard Paranoid on the radio and understood the significance of it. Um, but yeah, listening to Smells Like Teen Spirit, that might be something you guys can relate to the first time. Some of you guys are in your 30s, 40s now. Can relate to it. First time you heard it, like, holy shit, this is a game changer. This right here is a game changer. And it could, you know what? And it could have been the Backstreet Boys for some of you guys who are a little younger. Could have been Korn. Could have been Limp Bizkit. Could have been My Chemical Romance. But whatever it was, it changed you. It changed you. So now we're up to number 9. And actually, number 9 is 2 songs. Um, so Dream Theater was so Jim West talking about when him and his 2 closest friends first heard Dream Theater, our minds were blown. Fast forward 20 years, we all went to watch a show in 2019, right before COVID. It actually ran into we ran into I you know what? Good running into you, I guess, Jim. I don't remember it, but then all these concerts, I've been to over 1,500 concerts. They're all kind of blended into me, you know. Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. Here tripping with a bunch of my friends on purple micro dots. If you know what, Joe, the only way that sentence could have been better is if you said you were tripping on mescaline, because these kids don't know what mescaline is. That or Quaaludes. Um, hey guys, make sure that you're hitting the like or the whatever the reaction button, so that I know that you guys have stopped by and that you're listening, and hopefully you're having a good time. And hopefully we're bringing up these memories of you guys with your friends. Um, uh, that hopefully are special to you as the memories that I'm talking about uh, with my buddy Andy. So you watched Exorcist right after it on HBO. Why? That is not something that you should do ever. Is get high and then watch The Exorcist. That wasn't bright, Joel. I have a lot of respect for you. I love you, but that wasn't a bright thing to do. Don't please don't. Um uh so now we're at number 9, and 2 songs were tied for number 9. Um uh yeah, of course you couldn't sleep for days. Really? It's The Exorcist, for the love of God. And you're tripping balls? Come on. These 2 songs are from one of the greatest albums uh, that was ever recorded. And it's by Neil Young. It's the 1972 album Harvest. And the first one I already did. I smoked an 80 year, Padron 80 year, Scott, which is a significant cigar. But I smoked in memory of my buddy Andy today. But so Neil Young, 1972, Harvest. He releases that album, and it's got these two incredible songs. The first was "The Needle and the Damage Done." Andy having been recovering at the time, and me having a brother who was a heroin addict. This song is significant. Is significant. It was significant to us, to him and I, because of what he went through, what I saw my brother went through. And again, if it wasn't for witnessing my brother go through that, um, and hearing Andy, uh, yeah, it was written about one of his member, Jim West, talk about that the song was written about Bruce Berry, who was a member of Crazy Horse, Neil Young's band, who had OD'd. Um, uh, and Andy having gone through it and witnessing my brother, it was that, yeah, the needle and the damage done. The damage, not only not only physically, but the damage um done relationships. Uh, you know, the tragedy from seeing an addict, a heroin addict, and what he's going through is that the you see the physical change and you see the mental change. But what we see and we experience and we don't discuss enough are the relationship changes. You know how my brother who was the addict, Louis, God rest his soul, he was my hero growing up. A lot of what I am today comes from him. A lot of the humor, a lot of the flirtatiousness, the 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 ladies man slash womanizer, whatever, that all comes from him. My ability. Hey, what's up, Mike? Yeah, I know that you're there for my buddy Mike is on, and he's there helping to take care of Margie and Alex and Mari, and I appreciate you, Mike. I appreciate you being there for them because I can't be there. Um, you know, so I appreciate you taking care of them. I really do. Um, but as we witness these changes and the damage which eventually leads to death, and the people, that's the damage that's done. It's not just sticking the needle in your arm and watching them deteriorate. It's everything else that comes. And him and I would discuss that. Him and I went to see Andy and I went to go see Twisted Sister years ago. Obviously, everything I say is years ago. For the fucking love of God, Jesus! Not like anything was 2 days ago. Andy and I went to go see Twisted Sister, and we got together. We ended up meeting Eddie Ojeda, who's a guitarist, and we struck up this conversation. And he ended up inviting us back to his hotel room where we sat and drank all night with him. Well, Eddie Ojeda told Andy this story. Well, he told me and Andy the story, but him, yeah, you're right, brother. That is what we do. Um, uh, but Eddie Ojeda and Andy got into the discussion about heroin, and and uh, and he said this to Andy, and it hit me. It hit me as hard as it hit Andy. And he said he tried heroin once, and he never did it again because he knew he would love that more than anything else in the world. And when he said that, and obviously, Andy and him, they were drinking, and they both delved in that world. I didn't directly. I did indirectly through my brother and friends, but that hit me because that described my brother. That described my brother. Um, he loved heroin more than he loved anything else. And unfortunately, for my buddy Andy, heroin was an ex girlfriend who came back, and and that led to him to a lot of destroyed relationships. He was able to get off heroin again, and toward the end of his life, my understanding was that he had made peace with a lot of things, um, but it did to him again what it had done the first time. So that was that song. The other one that also came from that Harvest album, Neil Young, is a song called Old Man. And of course, after, when Andy and I would drink and we'd get past that point, the fun point, the we're laughing and we're joking, and all that shit point, and it gets serious, that's when this song will come up. And it's the story of the song, the story of a young man talking to an old man, right? Old man, take a look at my life. I'm a lot like you were. And and think about those words as you look as you as the old man are looking at someone who's young, who's making their mistakes, and how much you want them to not, how it hurts you when you see them making these mistakes, and how you want to warn them. But if you think about it, that's awesome. I got to meet Vinny Scott. I got to meet Vinny Paul. He actually really was a nice guy. Dimebag was amazing, but Vinny Paul, I got to meet him and talk with him. He was a cool guy. Um, I want you to think about that the next time. But going back to the song "Old Man" from the young person's perspective, right? And that person, we older people tell stories, and we tell stories, and our stories always have a moral, right? That there's always a reason why we don't want you to do what we've done. But damn, isn't it hard when we make it sound like so much fun, right? And when you think about these young kids, when they say, you know what, I'm a lot like you were. You did the same shit. You're alive. You know, uh, it's 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 difficult, isn't it? It's difficult for you to be overly judgmental to these young people who are doing the same shit you did. It really is. Um, but yeah, once we got over that point, uh, where it was just now it was again it was beer muscles or beer thoughts, very sobering thoughts, things that we by the time we were done discussing them we were sober. We call them sobering thoughts for a reason because they get so deep and so full of emotion that you actually end up sobering up by the end. And we did. I'd kill a bottle of Jack. He'd kill a bottle of Crown Royal, and by the end of it, we were sober when we had those because we got so deep and we let out so much, and we bonded on a way in a way that you bond with very few people in your life. Um, so yeah, so those two songs were tied for number 9. Now, before I give you number 10, um, and and I want you guys again, please make sure that you hit the reaction button so I know that you guys were here. I don't even know how many of you are still here. I know Joel is and Jim, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys being here. But if you haven't, you guys and Scott and anybody else, let me know that you're here. Let me know that you stopped by. Leave a comment in the chat. Um, Thank you. I appreciate that, Jim. Jim said he's going to go spin Harvest tonight. And you guys should too. It, the one song that those of you who don't know those songs might know is Heart of Gold. That was the big hit off of that album. Um, it's another beautiful. I mean, the whole album's a great album. It really is. Um, so please, if you get a chance, um, uh, if you get a chance, listen to that album tonight. And again, please, please, and thank you to Scotty. Yeah, man, that's his nickname. Scotty, whose real name is Joel, but I was talking about the other Joel, so now I don't want to confuse the two. Now I got Scotty here, Scotty, not Scott. But yeah, we used to call him Yeah Man because of because that's what he used to say all the time. Was, yeah, man, yeah, man. And hey, April, thank you for joining us. As I'm here celebrating um, my friend Andy Judah. That was his name, Andy Judah. Um, and I'm celebrating him the way him and I would celebrate when when he gave me a place to live. He gave me that apartment above his garage when I was when I was on the verge of when I was homeless. No, I wasn't on the verge of it. I was homeless. Um, and we would sit there in the garage. We would sit there out by the fireplace, and and we would drink and we would laugh and you know we'd get the cops called on us a couple of times because we were the neighbors were getting tired of us yelling and screaming and singing at the top of our lungs. Um, and Scotty, aka Joe, aka Yeah Man, you know the place because you came and visited me there a couple times. And oh yeah, and we did pick on you, Mike. Uh, which you know what? Um, Whatever. We used to go to Mike's house because Mike is Margie's next door neighbor, was Andy's next door neighbor when he was there, and we'd play Rock Band. I don't know if you remember. I remember that. And yeah, we would pick on him. And you know what, Mike? I would apologize, but you made senior chief. I was in E5 when I got out, so no apologies. Sorry, buddy. You got the rank. All I had was making fun of you. Sorry. Anyway, uh, please, I'm gonna be here. Obviously at least till 8. I'm gonna get ready now to give you the last song, and this song is the epitome of Andy. Some of you might have never heard this version. Okay. Um, uh, you might know better the Frank Sinatra version or the Elvis Presley version. It's a song written by Paul Anka, and it came out on the Sex Pistols 1978 album, The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. But it really was just Sid Vicious recording it and singing it, and it's my way. And if you know the song, the legit song, and you hear Sid Vicious debacle of a version, it was the epitome of punk rock. It was taking this song, he revved it up, and Sid Vicious did, he sped up the time, right? Um, uh, Bowie was asked to write "My Way" first, really. Um, anyway, uh, it's a very slow song. It's a ride of life, right? It's this person coming to terms at the end of their life, right? And now the end is near, so I face my final curtain, right? Um, uh, and that iconic end. Um, and through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up. No, that's not the end. I ate it up and spit it out. The record shows I took the blows and did it my way. Right? That's the song. But Sid Vicious does it in his Sid Vicious did it in his Sid Vicious Sex Pistols 1977 70/78 punk rock thing with a bunch of F bombs and a bunch of things that made no sense. You know, the one line in the original song, "To think I did all that," Sid Vicious changes it to think I killed the cat. Uh, you know, um, at the end of the day, that song was Andy. If I was the Sinatra version of My Way, which for the most part I am, um, uh, I didn't follow the beaten path. I did a lot of things. I fucked up a lot. But if I was that Sinatra version of My Way, then Andy 100% was the Sid Vicious version of My Way. Um, he lived it. He lived it 1,000 miles an hour. Even if and even as he slowed down as he got older, um, even as he slowed down, he was still going faster than most. Um, and I think that was the appropriate song to end my tribute to Andy. Uh, I don't know, Margie, if you're listening, or Alex, if you're listening. Mike, I know you are, so please let them know that I don't think Mari's listening. Um, but if they let them know um, that Andy loved them, he loved them all. He was a flawed human being. Um, but God, was he a fucking hell of a dude, man. And I'm gonna miss him. I'm gonna miss him. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me, for letting me celebrate um, my friend Andy's life, or his time, our time together. I hope I hope that those of you who listened and listened to the majority of the show, I hope that as I wrap this up, you have somebody like that, and that if you haven't talked to him in a while, give him a buzz. Just go say hello. Say I've been thinking about you. Tell them that you love them. And and yeah, and 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 if they're already gone, then hoist up something for them. I did a little gentleman jack earlier for Andy. Yours doesn't have to be alcohol for those of you who don't drink. Make it a Sprite. Make it a unsweet tea. Make it whatever. But hoist some up to their memory. And think about the good times. Think about the times that you had and how those times helped to shape you today. So that's it. I love you guys. Um, and next week we'll go back to the regular format, regular I don't know, maybe we'll talk about one hit wonders from the 90s, maybe we'll talk about albums from the 60s, maybe we'll talk about left-handed guitarist. Who knows? I don't fucking know. But I do know this. I love you guys, and I hope you guys have a great week. And I'll talk to you again next Sunday. So I'm going to end it the way I always ended it when I was on the fucking radio, which is to my kids. Have a great, well, to everybody. Good night. God bless. And to my children, don't forget Daddy loves you. Paisley on. Later, dudes. See you next week. Bye-bye.